A sequel to a film starring big robots smashing big monsters comes a film where big robots fight other big robots that turn out to be other big monsters. The series is far from subtle, but we get pleasures where we can. I categorise these big dumb films with 4 sets of criteria: character, dialogue, narrative, and world building. The first film, directed by Guillermo del Toro, disappointed me a fair bit, but illuminated the way I find del Toro. He's a master of world building, but everything else kind of falls by the wayside. With the exception of Pan's Labyrinth, his films have managed to make the spectacular kind of dull, because as I see it, he doesn't really focus on any of my other 3 sets of criteria. He does speak English as a second language, and if I had to create a film in my second language, I probably would rely only on spectacle and world building. So I can't really hate him, and he does seem really passionate, but I still remain cold on most of his films. So with the sequel, I wasn't really expecting much, just more of the same big nonsense, even if it was directed by a totally different dude. But I'm surprised from the opening moments in Pacific Rim Uprising. We have a charismatic lead, and we're not even in the robot suits. There's also a really nifty way of creating spectacle, with us starting with the small humans, who then get in a big robot, who then is dwarfed by a massive robot. All the while we're having John Boyega, who more or less plays a version of himself on screen, which is hugely successful. He's pretty magnetic and real likeable, even when the script's giving him barely anything. After the interesting opening, we then largely fall into standard action fare, with all the classic beats being played out with reasonably fun action, although I can't really quote you with anything, which says a lot. I'm most disappointed by the fact Del Toro and co. have manufactured a way to enable the robots having 2 characters controlling them rather than 1, and it was for the transparent reason of getting expositional dialogue across without the use of thought bubbles. The idea of, say, having 2 interesting characters banter back and forth is again misused in the film, with no one interesting playing off John Boyega. It just leads to screaming back and forth, which is occasionally effective but not worth the stretching needed for the plot creation of the 2-pilot function. From a diversity point of view, it is quite interesting that the main 2 characters are a black man and a woman. Following Force Awakens, it's now viewed as a safe move to show films with non-white men as the protagonists. This film only exists due to the first film's popularity in China, and with John Boyega in the main role and the previous success of Black Panther, it seems the misnomer that China is super racist has finally been proven wrong. In this film's defense, a lot of the more interesting notes of world building we are shown, not told. It's a wonderfully vague vision of a post-kaiju world. Various cool ideas sprung into my head as I was watching unrelated robots and monsters punching each other for a bit. For that, we go into spoilers. Most of these intriguing ideas are about the way these countries work together in ensuring kaiju never return to the world again. A red herring is introduced, showing a mysterious Chinese third party bringing in drones, which allow only 1 pilot to control the robots instead of 2. Then one of these drones mysteriously attacks an American robot. This led me to think about the idea that the film may potentially be about a post-kaiju world in which kaiju defenses were made as part of an international arms race. The longer it goes without a kaiju attack, the more international tensions get raised. Eventually, those robots are going to be used for defense and war potentially. Those were the ideas that were getting raised in the first third of the movie, before it ruined that idea by showing kaiju to be synced with these new robots. So much for a sweet post-9/11 movie. It immediately reverts back to goodies vs baddies, punching, featuring explosions. Speaking of missed opportunities, we have an evil Charlie Day in this film, which unfortunately ruins the chemistry and potential banter we could have gotten with Bernard Gorman from the first film. With these missed opportunities, this film is just as stupid as the first, but it has enough hints of a wider world that the big robots fighting each other doesn't seem as brain-numbing as the first film. 6 out of 10. I also have a podcast in which I have discussed the political news stories of today. Thank you for hopefully watching.